Imagine a world where everything you owned, food, shelter, even your love, was bartered by hand. That was life for millennia. How did human civilization find a standardized way to agree on value? It took shells, empires collapsing, and the ultimate digital leap. Imagine the earliest moments of human trade, a time before currency existed. Life began simply, relying on the exchange of goods directly from person to person. We call this bartering. Conceptually straightforward but practically a monumental headache. You are a skilled fisherman with an abundance of silver fish, but your neighbor is a brilliant potter who needs medicine, not seafood. Suddenly, you have to find a third party, perhaps someone who has both remedies and pottery, just to make an exchange happen. This requirement for a double coincidence of wants, where what you have perfectly matches exactly what the other person needs at that precise moment in time, is the core dilemma that slowed early civilization. It was inefficient, fragile, and prone to collapse because one single mismatch could grind an entire village's commerce to a halt. It's almost unimaginable that our ancestors had to spend valuable days simply trying to find someone who wanted exactly what they offered, rather than using their time making tools or growing food. Before coins, the human need for an exchange system forced us to look around at nature itself. We needed something that everyone would agree had portable value, something useful enough that we wouldn't just trade it away. This is where the concept of intrinsic value was born, the idea that an object's usefulness determined its worth. Think about shells, like the beautiful asterisk cowrie asterisk shell. They weren't valuable because they were pretty, but because early peoples recognized their rarity and their ability to survive harsh natural elements. Similarly, salt carried immense power in ancient times. In many parts of history, salt was so essential for preserving food that it literally paid for things, leading scholars to coin phrases like salary from the Latin salarium asterisk. These items weren't just pretty trinkets. They were tokens representing real sustenance or utility, proving that even before metal coinage, humans craved a standard measure of worth. It wasn't always about shiny coins and digital passes. Sometimes, money was simply what you had in excess. When economies were small, daily worth might be measured by a good ox, a basket of surplus grain, or perhaps a length of fine woven cloth. These valuable commodities became natural units of exchange because, unlike a fancy shell that could be easily lost or replaced, these goods held inherent, ongoing value and were relatively durable enough to trade years apart. Imagine a baker needing copper tools. He couldn't ask for coins. He had to wait until the blacksmith had meat or maybe dried legumes to trade with. This necessity forced early civilizations to find stable common denominators, leading to what historians call commodity money. Suddenly, if everyone agreed that a certain weight of barley or a dozen head of cattle represented reliable value across a trading region, it provided a foundational bedrock for commerce far stronger than anything previously used as currency. It was this standardization, the collective agreement on the worth of raw matter, that laid the essential groundwork upon which all future forms of sophisticated trade would eventually be built. But things really changed when humanity figured out how to take commodity value, like a pound of silver ore, and make it wearable, divisible, and verifiable. The big leap occurred with metallurgy, culminating in what we now recognize as coinage. Suddenly, an entire hoard of raw metal was replaced by small, standardized pieces stamped with a guarantee of weight and purity. This concept wasn't invented overnight. The earliest evidence points toward Lydia around the 7th century BCE, where they are thought to be among the first to mint formalized gold and silver coins. By ensuring that every piece bore an official stamp, civilizations immediately solved issues related to trust, which is nothing more than codified consensus. Whether it was the durable sheen of Athenian silver drachmas or the consistent weight of Roman denarii, these metals legitimized value across trade routes and entire empires. Portable metal currency meant armies could be paid consistently, Large-scale trade became dramatically easier, and wealth could flow with unprecedented speed. These reliable coins are arguably one of the most stable technological advancements in human history, forming the backbone for thousands of years of economy. But somewhere along the way in that long journey, humanity decided it didn't need gold or silver anymore, at least not as intrinsically. This marks the pivotal, and perhaps most surprising, moment in monetary history, the advent of fiat currency. Fiat literally means by decree, which tells you everything you need to know about its origin. Instead of being backed by a physical commodity that held inherent value, these early government-issued notes simply declared themselves money by act of will. Suddenly, your wealth wasn't measured in weight and purity, but in the collective trust placed in the issuing authority. Imagine receiving a bill marked with no metal backing. Its value rested purely on law and social belief, a profound psychological shift captured perfectly by the printing press. This mechanism allowed for exponential growth and facilitated complex economies that would have been impossible if every transaction required physically mining precious metals. And while the gold standard dictated constraints, fiat money gave us freedom, the freedom to print and trust others with carrying the promise of its worth. But history shows us that no matter how sturdy our currency seems, it is fundamentally moored to collective belief, a belief that can vanish overnight. When faith evaporates, we face hyperinflation, and nothing screams instability louder than the Weimar Republic in 1923, where banknotes rapidly became useless wallpaper hung against economic despair. Picture a Berlin housewife trying to buy a loaf of bread with stacks of paper money that plummeted in value by the hour. It was chaos personified. Economic history is littered with these boom and bust cycles. From the tulip mania bubble of 1637, where fragile flower bulbs were traded for fortunes, right up through the speculative frenzy of the late 20th century dot-com implosion. These collapses teach us a painful lesson about human psychology, that fear and greed are often more powerful forces than gold reserves or central bank guarantees. Every time we experience deep recession or commodity bubble, we see humanity's deepest vulnerability exposed, that our most valuable resource is not metal or paper, but shared confidence in the future. It was a dizzying acceleration, a leap from the brass telegraph keys to humming microchips. Suddenly, wealth wasn't something you could heft in your pocket. It was pure electrical data traversing miles of copper wire. Think about it. In an era where gold still mattered, we started treating transactions like sending a telegram, instantaneous records of value, rather than moving physical goods. The real shift came when the global networks matured after World War II, turning mere bookkeeping into something invisible and immediate. This was fundamentally different from the bartering or coinage of any previous civilization. By the late 20th century, we rarely had to see cash exchanged in person. Statements appeared on paper printed asterisk after the fact, but the transaction itself was already digital. The promise of instant global exchange made physical money almost vestigial, shrinking it from a centerpiece of culture down to a mere historical curiosity. What began as ledger entries kept safe by banks like J.P. Morgan slowly morphed into the ethereal existence we know today, proving that sometimes nothing at all can be worth more than everything you thought it was. But around this moment in history, something fundamentally new began to stir, a technology that promised to decouple value from physical jurisdiction entirely. We are talking about decentralized ledger technology, or DLT, and its most famous avatar, Bitcoin. The underlying vision, spearheaded by an anonymous figure known only as Satoshi Nakamoto, was simple yet revolutionary. How do we transfer massive amounts of value without relying on gatekeepers? Before crypto, your money was fundamentally trusting a network of institutions, banks, governments, central clearinghouses. Cryptocurrencies propose escaping that very system. Instead of needing permission from a bank or a single government authority, Transactions are verified and recorded across a global distributed ledger accessible to anyone with an internet connection. This allowed individuals, anywhere on the planet, to store value outside the grasp of borders or oppressive regimes. It wasn't just about digital currency. It was a completely new architecture for trust itself. In essence, Bitcoin gave people a powerful tool, a peer-to-peer alternative that shifted financial power away from central authorities and back into the hands of the individual. Money is not inherently valuable. Its power lies in the collective faith we place in it. From painted shells to unbreakable algorithms, this continuous quest for reliable value is what defines human society's most epic story. Next time you swipe a card or click send, remember that you are participating in 10,000 years of powerful cultural consensus.